Earlier in the programme, we were discussing the countries committed to reducing new coal power construction, as well as Norway's election, which was largely run on climate change issues. So the question is there a role for fossil fuels beyond 2050? Well, I'm joined now by Fatima Ibrahim, co-founder of the Green New Deal UK, and Bob Ward from the Grantham Research Institute on climate change and the environment. Good to see both of you. Fatima, coming to you first. Do you think there will still be demand for fossil fuels in 30 years?
I mean, absolutely not. If we're even remotely interested in avoiding climate disaster and ensuring a future that is not just livable, but promises opportunity to thrive, then there needs to be no role for oil and gas and fossil fuels beyond 2050. And waiting until 2050 is even a gamble. The oil and gas industry are betting on and wanting us to bet our future on unproven technologies of carbon capture and storage so that they can stay in business. But the science is clear. We need to untether the global economy from fossil fuels, and we can transition in a way that's just, that provides security for communities who are dependent on these industries. But we can only do that if we start transitioning now and offer an opportunity that delivers new green jobs for these communities.
And what about you, Bob? Do you think that that pace of transition needs to be quicker?
It certainly needs to be quicker, but the International Energy Agency earlier this year was very clear. If we want to get to net zero emissions of greenhouse gases by the middle of the century, there should be no new development of coal, oil and gas. And that's right across the world, because the reserves we already have are already more than we can afford to burn if we want to get to that 2050 target. So every country, including the UK, should not be exploring for more oil, coal and gas. And it's unfortunate that the UK government has still said that it wants exploration to continue in the North Sea.
Yeah, you're quite right to bring up the IEA there. And let's just look at that quote. The executive director of IEA has said if governments are serious about the climate crisis, there can be no new investments in oil, gas and coal from now. And that's a key distinction, isn't it, Fatima? It's one thing using what you've already got. It's another thing pouring money into new fossil fuel.
I mean, absolutely. And I think that's where we see the hypocrisy of governments who are telling us that we need to take individual action, that the climate crisis is real. And at the same time, we have the UK government who's hosting a UN climate conference, one of the most important international conference on climate, and is at the same time exploring new oil in the North Sea, opening new coal mines in Cumbria. That just doesn't make sense to anybody. And I think that's something I think we're all concerned about, and is creating a lot of anxiety for people, because we just see that their words and their action is not matching.
All right, well, you mentioned the UK government there, of course, hosting COP26 there, as you were saying, Fatima. And it's worth pointing out the government's stance. A government spokesman has said we will continue to need oil and gas in the coming years, as it is still vital to the production of many everyday essentials. Bob, what do you think? Do you think that's damaging to our credibility as host of COP26 when we say that oil and gas and coal is still vital to our everyday needs?
Well, it's clear that we're not going to stop using fossil fuels overnight, so it will be a reduction over time. But the problem that the government has is that it's basically saying, do as we say, not as we do. If it wants other countries to commit to net zero by 2050, which it's quite rightly doing ahead of COP26, then it needs to lead by example. By allowing exploration to continue, it risks contributing to an oversupply of fossil fuels, which will depress the price and make it more difficult to replace fossil fuels. It also means a lot of people are going to lose money, because my bet is we are going to get to net zero by 2050. And a lot of people who are betting on us missing that target are going to lose money by investing in fossil fuels. It's a bad bet to make.
Yeah, you snooze, you lose, I suppose. And Fatima, what do you think? Do you think the UK can be successful in persuading other countries to stick to commitments when we're still considering investments of our own? Just briefly.
I mean, no, I don't. No, I don't think so. And it's not just new investments and new exploration. The government is propping up the fossil fuel industry. We subsidize the fossil fuel industry 10.5 billion every year, the highest rate of subsidies in all of Europe. So I don't know how this government can call itself a leader when it's backing up the fossil fuel industry and really getting in the way from us transitioning into a green economy.